This type of injury, like, you don't know. When I wake up, I'll feel, different than the day before. And
this is the first time we heard from Caitlin since the team announced on Memorial Day she was dealing with a left quad strain. She would be out for at least 2 weeks.
We were told that Clark was not seen in the open portion of practice by reporters who are on the ground there.
Just watch and absorb it, and it's the same when, I'm not active too.
Caitlin Clark finally spoke about her injury, explaining that every time she wakes up she feels different, which shows how serious her situation really is. This was the first update since the team announced on Memorial Day that she had a left quad strain and would be out for at least 2 weeks. Reporters said she wasn't seen at practice, and her tone made it clear she is frustrated but trying to stay calm. She explained that the best way to handle this is to stay patient, trust the process, and accept that some days will be more difficult than others. For the first time, fans could hear the uncertainty in her voice, and it shocked the entire WNBA because everyone knew the league didn't want this news right now.
We'll see. It could be a possibility, but I could also not be available for that game too. I think just having good perspective is the best way to approach it. Like, yeah, you can be frustrated and whatnot, but, I think the medical team has done a really good job of, I'll be reevaluated this weekend, so I'll miss this weekend's game, but after that, it's, day by day and see how I feel and just kind of turn to the medical staff and what they.
Clark admitted she might not be available even for upcoming key games, saying everything depends on how her leg responds day by day. She mentioned that you can be upset about the situation, but the medical team has done a good job helping her stay on track with treatment. Still, it's impossible to ignore the fact that the entire organization is relying heavily on one woman, and the pressure has clearly taken a toll on her body. The reality is that empty arenas and falling ratings have pushed her harder than anyone else, and now she's sidelined because she was expected to carry too much. Her reevaluation is coming up soon, but nothing about her tone suggested she plans to rush.
The whole team has done a really good job of, doing my rehab every single day, staying in a routine, coming in, getting shots up. But more than anything, I think just focusing on being a really good teammate, being there for my teammates, being a voice for them.
Been told so far by the team is that this is actually an injury that was separate from the quad tightness issue, as Caitlin Clark described it earlier in the preseason, that she dealt with before. So it's a little bit of an interesting situation given that it was the same leg.
Clark explained that she will miss the weekend's game and that her return depends on how she feels after her next evaluation. She made it clear she won't risk her long-term health for the sake of the league's panic. She praised the medical staff for helping her recover daily, keeping her routine steady, and keeping her grounded as she supports her teammates. She also said her role hasn't disappeared just because she isn't on the court. She's still trying to be a leader from the bench. Her injury happened on May 25th during a big matchup against the New York Liberty, and fans immediately noticed something was wrong when she grabbed her left quad and couldn't continue.
Caitlin was asked when she's expected to come back. She told us she would be reevaluated after the weekend. After that, it would be day by day. The Fever are on the road for 2 road games before coming back to Gainbridge Fieldhouse next Saturday.
The girl is spectacular. It's not like she's not a scrub. She's not only can play, she's a star caliber player who draws this attention.
Many fans were shocked that the league didn't treat Clark's injury with urgency, especially since she is the biggest draw and the main face of the WNBA. Reporters later revealed that this injury was different from the quad tightness she had earlier in the preseason, even though it was the same leg. When the Fever announced she'd be out for at least 2 weeks, the league suddenly seemed to fall apart. It felt like everything was being held together by tape, and once she went down, the problems became impossible to hide. Clark stated she'd miss this weekend and would not be pressured to return early, showing she refuses to put her career at risk just to save the league's revenue.
So I think that's just kind of been the time for me to really find some patience, and I've never been a patient person my entire life, so this has definitely tested me a little bit, but I think it's going to be really good for me, and like I said, I've just tried to approach it in the best way I possibly can. I can't change it.
Telling us she's been a connector between her coaches and teammates. They've gone 1-2 without her, and they'll be without her again this weekend.
The Fever are currently on a road trip, and Clark's reevaluation date is June 9th, but fans know she isn't coming back like a superhero. She is human, dealing with a real injury, and the situation has pushed her patience to the limit. With her out, fans have been furious, especially after ticket prices for the June 7th game against the Chicago Sky dropped from around $80 to $14. That's not a small dip, that's a collapse. Many people canceled trips, demanded refunds, and said the game wasn't worth attending without Clark. Meanwhile, Angel Reese acted like she was the main attraction, but fans clearly disagreed, especially now that Clark isn't there to elevate the matchups.
Focusing on being a really good teammate, being there for my teammates, being a voice for them, because that's what I am when I'm playing. So you got to still be that consistent voice when I'm sitting on the bench. So I try to do that as much as I can for them, and just try to be there for them, I think, has been my.
That it's going to be longer than 2 weeks. With them saying a minimum of 2 weeks, I feel like that's kind of just giving us breadcrumbs, just giving us enough information. And I actually don't think that they're going to give more for the sake of.
Clark said she has focused on being a connector between the coaches and players while recovering, but the Fever have struggled without her, going 1-2. Online, fans became louder than ever, pushing hashtags like "Protect Our Players" and "Boycott WNBA," demanding real changes in officiating and player safety. One viral tweet asked why fans should support a league that can't protect its brightest star. Clark said this time away has forced her to learn patience, something she's never been good at, but she's handling it the best she can. Ticket prices for Fever games crashed from an average of $137 to $80, showing how deeply her absence affects the league and its audience.
We haven't seen her as quick as we saw her last season. If you have something going on in your legs, like your legs are actually a huge part of your shooting mechanics, something was thrown off. So if that part of her body was thrown off, it probably threw off the entire mechanic. Player is injured. If the other team knows that a player is injured, they will go at that player.
The league is facing a meltdown because it relied entirely on Clark to carry interest, excitement, and ticket sales. She's a star-level player, not just a role player, and she brings massive attention wherever she goes. Instead of protecting her or holding players accountable for harsh contact, the league acted like everything was normal, even when dangerous plays were happening. The WNBA's evaluation and officiating system seem outdated and inconsistent, leaving fans upset. Games started looking like wrestling matches, with players falling left and right while officials offered little protection. Social media lit up with criticism as people questioned why nobody was addressing the obvious issues.
Were commenting that she was sick. You could hear it in her voice that she was sick. It seems like at this point, this is the reason why we haven't seen Caitlin at 100%. We haven't seen her as quick as we saw her last season. Everything that you guys told us during the offseason about playing quick, playing with pace, pushing the ball up the court, everyone run, they weren't doing that, especially in the last.
With Clark gone, the WNBA has been exposed. The hype faded instantly, arenas emptied, and ticket prices dropped lower than the cost of a fast food meal. Angel Reese continued acting like she was in a rivalry, but without Clark, her energy meant nothing. Carrington continued her overly aggressive style, making people question whether she knew the difference between playing defense and making careless contact. Clark kept trying to support her team from the bench, being a consistent voice, but the truth is that her absence turned into a crisis that the league didn't know how to handle. Fans saw this as negligence and demanded accountability.
But for the Fever, one thing to keep in mind is that this is a sort of situation where the next 2 weeks, luckily for them, the schedule is a little bit playing the Chicago Sky, the Connecticut Sun, who haven't won yet. So they are trying to hold down the fort for now, while Caitlin Clark will be out.
Covers up a lot of stuff when you're in the heat of battle, and after the game I had some pain and then got an MRI, and that kind of gave me the result that I didn't want to see, but those type of things don't lie, so yeah.
When Clark left the court, the league's entire momentum collapsed. The arenas felt empty, the excitement disappeared, and even vendors looked uninterested. The Fever went 1-2 without her, and that one win came from a player signed on a hardship contract who barely practiced before joining. Meanwhile, the WNBA acted like everything was fine, refusing to address clear issues with officiating, safety, and scheduling. Fans demanded better protection for players and called out the league for depending on one star instead of building up multiple storylines. Even Chicago Sky fans said their tickets weren't worth using if Clark wasn't playing.
Caitlin Clark has been taking a beating for the last year and a half, and it quickly got physical early in this season, man. There was a lot of games.
Clark revealed that after one game she felt unexpected pain and an MRI confirmed the injury was real, not something she could ignore. Fans and analysts agree that the league can't function like this anymore. Too many games depend on too few stars, and the WNBA has failed to create an environment where players feel safe. People pointed out how the NBA uses advanced technology, training systems, and load management, while the WNBA seems to rely on hope and basic equipment. Clark has taken physical hits for a year and a half, and many believe she shouldn't return until the league proves it can protect its top player. She is more than an athlete now, she is the face of the league, its main attraction, and the reason for its growth. If the WNBA doesn't change immediately, it risks losing her forever, and fans are finally realizing how fragile the entire system really is.